All right, November Golf here. I'm joined by my fellow Street Fighter and rival, Dr. Allo.
Hey guys!
All right, we're both from the Australian and New Zealand Street Fighter Alpha community, and we're here today to try out an experimental training series where we're going to be running through one character at a time and talking about how we see their playing style, the general sort of game plan, and we'll be bouncing ideas off each other. And hopefully, we'll create something that has some value for people that are new to the game, or even intermediates looking to take their game to the next level, and hopefully we'll improve ourselves. So, Dr. Allo, do you want to talk a little about the theme that we've chosen for this video series?
Yeah, essentially this series is going to be called Alpha Rivals. And I think it's quite fitting because of the fact that both November Golf and I have been rivals ever since we kind of met each other, not only just in terms of Street Fighter, but I guess in life in general. And what we're planning to do with this particular series is not only focus on the rivalry between November Golf and myself, but focus on teaching people about and exploring what we know about the characters, but to picking characters who are in Street Fighter lore rivals with each other. So in episode 1, what we're going to do, we're going to pick November Golf has picked Karin and I've picked Sakura, and the two of them are schoolgirls who are similarly interested in street fighting, and they're always trying to one up each other. And so we thought it'd be really a great parallel to be able to showcase the rivalry between the November Golf and myself, and also showcase the rivalries between characters in the Street Fighter world, at the same time as being able to demonstrate what we feel is the strengths and weaknesses of those particular characters who are the rivals we're focusing on.
Very and very fitting, given we both used to be rival schoolgirls, so a good place to start.
Again, speak for yourself, November Golf.
Hey, I've just got a deep voice. So as a sort of a disclaimer to this video series, we're certainly not proclaiming that what we say is the best way to play these characters, or that we're the top level or anything like that. This is just what we've found to be strong with these characters, and our sort of preferences of playing, and also just what we've found through research and watching some of the best players in the world, how they use the characters. We're definitely far from the pro level ourselves. So by all means, if you're watching this and you've got some experience to share, or you feel like something that we've missed something, feel free to drop in and let us know. Like share with us your knowledge and help to build that knowledge base for these characters. So I'll just quickly run through the format that the sort of loose format we're looking to run through. Basically, we'd be exploring poke options, anti-air options, and we'll just discuss a little about what the footsie game looks like with this character. Another thing that we'll be really hoping to explore that we noticed is a bit of a gap out there in YouTube and just websites in general about Alpha. We're going to be talking about how can we use these characters to set up situations where the opponent will be using an air recovery or a roll recovery. And not just that, but after setting up these situations, how can we punish air recoveries, or how can we punish roll recoveries, and what are the best tools that each of these characters have to do this? And as part of that, we'll be talking about bread and butter combos, and also variable combos, VCs. Although for more detailed information for each character's VCs, we would refer you on to our variable combo video series. So that's just about it for the format. Dr. Allo, any final thoughts on this sort of general introduction before we crack into it?
Yeah, no, I think that's actually quite good. I mean, quite thorough in the way that we should be covering the characters. I think I'll just also speak a little bit about the format that we're going to be carrying out the series. Essentially, each episode is going to be broken into 3 parts. So the first part is going to focus on one of the 2 rivals. The second part is going to be focusing on the other rival, obviously. And then part 3 is going to be a chance for us to demonstrate it in a actual game situation. So we'll put it in a format of a first to 10. And I'm really looking forward to that, because that will really sort of allow me to show my dominance over my co-host November Golf. And yeah, you'll hopefully get to see, Dr. Allo winning like 10-0 a number of times over and over and over again. So yeah.
You've beat me to that. You've beat me to it. I was gonna throw that in, but you've beat me to it. But that's okay, because that's the only thing you're going to be beating me in. So
yeah. we'll see about that.
All right. So let's crack into it. So we've both made some short videos in the training mode. So we'll just crack right into Karin's one. Karin, how do you say it? All right. So you can see on the screen. You can see on the screen here that I've got her frozen at one of the first pokes, and I'll just be demoing a series of pokes that I think work quite well in the game. And just note with this one, it's interesting in that her foot is actually touching Sakura, but that's not actually hitting. So you just got to note that with the hitboxes of these, every time you're experimenting around with your character's pokes, you really got to get a feel for what the actual hitbox is, and it's not always as simple as the visuals of the character. In this case, she is likely just lightly caressing Sakura's foot before she's going to kick the crap out of her. Sort of similar to how I will go easy on Dr. L at the start and then proceed to lay on the beat down.
I think you're probably correct in half of that statement. You probably end up looking like you're going easy the whole time, but that's okay.
Okay. So I'll just play the video. So as you can see, like that was the maximum point at which the sweep would not hit. So it's actually quite a far-ranging sweep, and also with this standing hard kick, that is her other poke that is extremely far-reaching. You'll find that it outranges most characters' normal pokes. Sakura actually happens to be one of the few characters who also has an equally fast and equally high priority poke. So with Karin, what I've demoed there is essentially her crouching roundhouse or crouching hard kick, which is her sweep, one of the furthest reaching sweeps in the game, and it has a decent recovery time as well, although it's not something that you can just keep throwing out. I also demoed her crouching medium kick, which isn't really a poke you want to use too much because it's not cancelable into any specials, so she can't really combo off it, but it's still a useful and pretty fast poke to throw out if you're looking to finish off your opponent. And then I've showed the standing medium kick, which is probably going to be it's one of her main meaties. It's very high priority. It has a decent range, and as I'm going to show, you can connect her main bread and butters off it.
So that one is her standing medium kick. That one just then was her standing heavy kick, for people who are not that familiar with her.
So as you can see, like I'm about to land some of these standing medium kicks from quite far away. It's almost at the maximum range of the standing medium kick, and yet I can still connect her full, what we call the wrecker. Her wrecker is essentially quarter circle forward punch followed by a series of other follow-ups, and that's her sort of wrecker combos. And so she can connect these wrecker combos almost at maximum range. So you can really punish people from quite far away. Even if you see them miss an uppercut or something like that, you can just easily throw out this standing medium kick and then connect it to a wrecker combo. And a lot of her game revolves around landing these wreckers, and they're so powerful. So just now, this is one of the follow-ups where she sweeps after it. I've used light kick in this one just to show that if you do it at the maximum range, the light kick sweep will not hit. So you do need to use the medium kick one to actually land that. And I also demoed one time that if I do actually hit the standing medium kick at full range, the wrecker actually won't hit. So you do have to be a little careful not to always aim for that maximum distance.
And so, November Golf, do you find that there's a difference between using her Rekka or the Guren Ken, which is the Japanese name for it? Do you find that you need to use the heavy punch or the light punch to start the Guren Ken or the Rekka move that you're referring to maximize the connection between the medium kick and the Guren Ken?
I have to be honest. I haven't experimented around with the light, medium, and heavy, but I tend to use the heavy, and the startup time is like I don't notice a significant difference. I'm always able to land the combo, so and it's not slow or anything. It's not punishable. What I will say is that the difference between the light, medium, and hard is how far she travels. So typically the hard one is the one that you want to go with. But when you're doing some of her other variable combos, you might find that you have to sometimes use the light one just to, depending on the distance that you are from the opponent to keep up the juggle. That's probably getting a little too technical, but we can definitely talk more about that when we get up to the variable combos section.
Sure.
So that would have been a medium kick, down medium kick to finish that Rekka. So these two are her... Yeah, sorry?
It's quite interesting. Yeah, she's got quite a long range with that, even from almost maximum range with her standing medium kick. She's able to connect the all three hits of the Guren Ken and the Mujin Kyaku. The up kick. Yeah, her slide kick's called something else, which I don't know the name of.
Throwing all this fancy Japanese around, and it's like I don't know.
Yeah, just trying to make myself look smarter than I actually am.
Well, come on, you're supposed to be playing Sakura. She's Japanese, so I got an excuse. Like my girl's blonde, so
she still has the surname Kanzuki.
I know.
So she's supposed to be Japanese too. She's a try-hard European.
So as you can see, what I've demoed here is the main two Rekka variations that you should be using. The one with the sweep, because once you've swept your opponent, you're setting up a situation where you can, jump in for a combo. You can do an overhead. Basically, you want to knock down your opponent. It's a big part of the game. And maybe Dr. Elo, you might be someone who is in a better position to talk about that facet of the game. Bring knockdown.
Yeah, so in terms of knockdowns, essentially what that means is if you get knocked into the air, you can either recover and land back on your feet, or alternatively you can land on your back. Now, if you land on your feet, the good thing is that you're obviously ready to fight again. If you land on your back, then you've essentially got to do this. You enter what we call the wake up game. So usually the person who's standing generally tends to have the upper hand there, because they've got the ability to attack before the person who gets up from the knockdown is able to attack. So knockdowns themselves can really turn the tide of the flow of the match towards the person who managed to score the knockdown.
Yeah, and in this situation, basically, this is one of many ways, and hopefully I'll show you a few other ways that you can quite reliably, just from a single hit, go into a combo that scores a knockdown. And her two variations, the slide knocks you down instantly, in which case you can play the wake-up game and try and score another hit to then land another combo. Or you can launch them in the air, as I've just done now, and I'll show one more time. And after you've launched them into the air, you set up even more options, as I'll show you now.
Yeah, so basically, yeah. And then the interesting thing about a knockdown is that if the person who's attacking has reached what we call a neutral state, the opponent can then flip. And if they flip, then they can make sure that they land on their feet, which is going to be advantageous most of the times. But if the person who's on the offensive is aware that they're going to flip, you can purposely set up situations where you punish that flip as well. So you pretty much go, okay, well, you're going to flip. Now you're airborne for that little bit longer. It gives me a little bit more time to go and throw another attack in, which you might end up landing on. And so it could still not be in your favor either.
And I guess that's where you've really got to start to mix up your flips and mix up your rolls, and sometimes do not flip at all or not roll at all. Once you start to reach the levels where people actually be actively looking out for these to punish you if you're a bit of an automatic flipper.
It sounds quite interesting. Automatic.
Automatic flip. Yeah. So
Yeah,
this is another way you can land the Rekka combo, or I can't remember the full Japanese name, but I'm sure you can chime in with that.
yeah, Guren Ken.
The Guren
Ken.
Ken. So
Some people are
fancy.
just a bit more classy than others.
Oh,
That's okay.
classy. So this is a very useful combo, and being someone who uses the Karin a lot, this is something that I don't do enough, and I've noticed that the top players use it all the time and land it reliably, and it's actually something that's very easy to do. So it's just two crouching light kicks, and then going straight into quarter circle forward hard punch, and then following up with the rest of the Rekka variation, and it's just a very useful combo to use. And you can use it to punish rolls. So I haven't actually demoed a roll punish here because I couldn't set up the training dummy to do the roll. But basically, if you knock down your opponent and they roll, you just throw out a crouching light kick, and if they don't roll, then no harm done. You can play the wake up game. And if they do roll and that crouching light kick lands, you just follow up with another full Rekka combo, and then you knock them down again, and then we'll see if they roll this time.
That's a really good game plan. Yeah.
It's hard to tell when you're going to be sarcastic. So just now I was like, oh, he's game plan. I was like, all right, I got to retort something. Oh, it was
it's a good game plan.
Yeah, it was a legit compliment. Okay.
Just trying to keep you on your toes.
So this is another little bread and butter that's very useful. So I have to admit, I haven't been using this at all, but when I was watching a few videos of some of the top Japanese Karin players, they actually use this one very often, actually more often than any of the other ones that I've demonstrated so far. And I suspect the reason for this is because it just takes that split second to crouch and then do the crouching light kick. Whereas with this one, a lot of times they're using Karin's really fast walking speed to just walk up and then throw out a jab. And basically this combo is jab, jab, or light punch, standing light punch, standing light punch, standing light kick, comboed into the Rekka. And I suspect that they just walk up and then immediately throw out a jab. And if it comes out faster than what the other opponent was going to throw out, then they land the jab, and then suddenly they've got the bread and butter. And as you can see on the damage, it does quite a decent amount. And as I'll show after this, you can actually land a lot more damage if you launch them into the air. Or in this case, knocking them down is not a bad option either, because then you can just play the wake up game and hopefully land another Rekka.
And I think another thing, because the light punches, you're right, they come out so quickly, but because they're also cancelable into themselves, essentially she's got the upper hand. She actually is positive on block because of the fact she can cancel it. And what that means essentially is that your opponent is actually held in position. Basically, Karin is able to move and do another attack before the opponent comes out of their block stun. So therefore, she is at an advantage. So she is able to get her attack out before Sakura will be able to get her attack out, her counter attack out.
So you're essentially able to. I mean, there's no harm in throwing it out, because the worst that can happen is they block, and then you whittle down their guard block, and then you throw out the first two hits of the Rekka, which is safe on block at most distances. And so you chip down a bit of their guard and you chip off a bit of their life, and then that's the worst that can happen. And if you actually land it, then you land a full combo. So yeah, good point. So this is the up kick or the launcher option. And now, as you can see, if they don't flip, you can immediately land a standing hard punch. And you can obviously do that if they flip as well. So right now I'm just demonstrating her anti-air. This is her main and probably her most effective anti-air. And if you land it on a counter hit, you can actually land multiple. As just now I've landed 3 in a row. And if you get the right, if you get it right, you can land between 3 to 4 of those in a row. And if you don't get it on a counter hit, well, it's worthwhile. It's a worthwhile anti-air anyway. It does a decent amount of damage, and it out prioritizes most air attacks. The one thing I will say about it as a weakness is that it does have a decent startup time. So it's not like an uppercut or a Shoryuken, which comes out almost instantly the moment you finish the motion. This takes a little startup time, and that means that you can't just use it on reaction. You have to. There is a degree of anticipation and looking out for their jump, because otherwise, if you use it too late, you'll likely eat the jump in attack of the opponent. But otherwise, if you throw it out in time, it has immense priority, and you're more likely to win out and beat the air attack. Dr. Allo has eaten plenty of these in the face. So, Dr. Allo, any thoughts on this anti-air? Comments on it?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a pain in the butt. You know, it still comes, and you're right, it does have a startup, but it comes out relatively quickly. But I think the thing that's most scary about it is the fact that literally between her two hands, you know, if you have a look at the move, she pretty much stretches her two arms to their fullest extent, and that entire space between her two fists is her hit box. Is essentially the hurt box that she can cause damage to the opponent. So that's a massive, really, really long hitbox or hurt box, which is actually a hitbox. Hitbox means that the one that can hit other people, and that hitbox is quite because it's so big, it can hit in front of her and behind her. So that's one of those situations where it's just like, geez, what is this? This move is insane. It's so effective at hitting everything above her. I almost visualize it as, imagine if she was holding like a silver platter between her two outstretched hands, you know, a massive silver platter. You know, that entire platter, any part of your body that touches that platter is going to get hit pretty much. And that's why the move itself is so effective. You can pretty much throw it out regardless of whether they're trying to cross you up or whether or not they're jumping in from the front, and it will still manage to connect as well. And that's the reason why I feel it's so effective against myself too.
Yeah, we'll be serving up a couple of losses to you on the platter with Karin.
Yeah. But then obviously when you've got people who are skilled as myself, then you probably won't be eating many of them, but that's okay. You know, you can lull yourself into a bit of a sense of security if you'd like to, NovemberGolf.
But it was a really worthwhile point, mentioning how big that hitbox, and also how it can hit essentially behind, because as you know, if you look back to just before when I demoed it, there are times where I use Karin's walking speed, which is one of the fastest in the game, and I essentially anticipate a jump, and I just walk underneath their jump. And by doing that, I'm able to land it behind me, which sets up a situation where they get hit in a way that is likely to set up an opportunity for me to get another hit. And as you saw, that's how I managed to land anywhere between 2 to 3. And sometimes you can do 4 as well in a row. You can imagine it not only does a shitload of damage, but it is a bit of a psychological blow for your opponent. You know, just get hit by this kind of really stupid looking move 4 times in a row, and each time they're just flipping it, and oh, I got hit by it again, and then oh, I got hit by it again, and they just got to learn not to flip.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't look like a martial arts kind of move either, does it? And I think that does add to the you know, salt to the wound, essentially, insult to injury, because it's like, you know, how could this, you know, ineffective looking move cause me so much trouble?
It's very appropriate for a schoolgirl. It's like a really schoolgirly move.
I know, but somehow it's so effective. Yeah, I can't you know, visualize most schoolgirls being that effective at fighting. You know, like are people who have mastered the dark art of Hado, but somehow you know they're able to compete, which is pretty impressive. You know.
Yeah, well, she specializes in platters and also face palms, as she's demonstrating right now. Also, with speaking of pain in the ass, and a little fan service panty shot there. But let's move on.
That's good. It's a win on so many counts. Hey.
So what I'm about to demo is, I guess maybe an alternative anti-air for V Karin, where you can activate and do her anti-air variable combo. So if you want the transcript for that is in the variable combo video, which I'll chuck a link in the description. And so now I'm going to move on to counter hits. And this is something that we isn't really explored that much but I believe it's a big part of the game. And so this is landing any sort of heavy attack usually, and there are some exceptions, and I'll demo that. Karin actually has one of those exceptions. But landing a heavy attack, in this case, her heavy punch in the corner for a counter hit, sets up a situation where you can juggle the opponent again, and you can do that regardless of whether they flip or not. So I'll just play video. So that's just showing, well, that's when they flip. And that's another option. You can just activate your V'ism and do about 80% of their life. Well, I think in a real game, probably closer to about 50%. I've got the damage settings up here just to show how much damage I'm going to be laying onto Dr. Allo.
I was like, that's not, where's that damage coming from? That's not real.
That's a reflection of my
I'm not going to have to artificially I'm not going to have to artificially amplify my the effectiveness of Sakura when I'm demonstrating. So
that's just one more time. So yeah, just to emphasize, that will probably do about 50% normally.
Wow, look at that. That looked like 90%
there. So with landing her hard kick as a counter hit in the corner, as I'm demoing right now, you can land a combo after it, but the timing is extremely tight. So I'm just showing that it can be done, but you're not as likely to be able to punish a counter hit hard kick in the corner. But yeah, definitely the hard punch, and you are likely to land a lot of those because it is a high priority move. And if the opponent is looking to jump out of the corner, what you can do is just throw out some standing hard punches, given that it has such a massive arc and a high priority. And what you'll find sometimes happens is you'll land these counter hits, and then you can set up further juggles. So definitely something I found quite effective with Karin. So now I'm just showing some of her jump-ins. So this jumping attack is actually really one of the better ones in the game. It has really long range and it has quite high priority as well. This is actually one of the few moves that can actually trade or sometimes even beat Sakura's crouching fierce or crouching hard punch, which is probably one of the best anti-airs in the whole game. So it really goes to show the far reach and the priority of this move. Unfortunately, in what I'm demoing here right now is also a demo of one of Sakura's strengths or sort of a weird built-in strength in that she's just got an immensely small hitbox. So quite a lot of combos that would normally hit a character sometimes don't work on her. And in this case, what I'm doing is a jumping hard kick comboed into a standing medium kick, comboed into the wrecker, which pretty much hits every single other character. But as right now, like if you just look, when I press play, you'll notice that the medium kick will connect and it will be a 2-hit combo, but then the wrecker won't connect for some reason, and it's because of Sakura's small hitbox. But this is
I think before you move on, but like I think from my own experience, I noticed this heavy kick. It's insane. Her hitbox is so effective because it extends right down to the end of her leg, and her own hurt box where she can get hit is so much higher up. I mean, as much as she can be hit where her extended leg is, the rest of her hurt box is just so far away that's very hard to punish. So yeah, definitely, if you're doing a front jumping, this jumping heavy kick is fantastic it's one of her best jump-in options. It's definitely one of her most safe jump-ins. And as you were saying, rightly so, Sakura has this incredibly effective crouching heavy punch, which is a very quick and easy to execute anti-air move. And the beauty about that move is that Sakura's own hitbox for that move extends above where her own hurt box is, so she can hit you in areas where she can't even be hit herself. And yet the two of them still can hurt. Karin's jumping heavy kick and Sakura's crouching heavy punch often can trade with each other. That's how effective Karin's jumping heavy kick is, and that I think is definitely one of the things that you it's good that you've explained to the viewers here.
So it's going to be interesting in that, like, we're demoing these tools because they're effective against most of the cast. But what's interesting is that these two characters, whether intentionally or not, because they're rivals, for some reason happen to have the tools equipped to sort of somewhat counteract each other's strengths. And unfortunately, in this case, I'm in a situation where normally a easy bread and butter follow up with my Rekka is not going to connect. As you can see, she could just immediately block right afterwards.
So what do you have to do with that?
What do you mean? What do I have
So
to
what do you actually have to do, to be able to deal with, because of the fact that then you don't have a true combo, and then Sakura, a really alert Sakura would be able to, say, for example, activate their VC, a Vism, in between those attacks and essentially hit you out of it. What do you have to be mindful of as a Karin player to be, so that you don't leave yourself being vulnerable?
That's interesting because, I don't think it's a relevant consideration, to be honest. Because, this is a real, because that's then assuming that Sakura is willing to eat, like crouch, because she has to be crouching to miss the Rekka. That's assuming that Sakura is willing to eat the jump in, and the subsequent standing medium kick. So eat some free damage just so then the Rekka will miss. And there's no guarantee that Karin's going to throw the Rekka out as well. So in this case, your question is sort of assuming that Sakura will trade some free damage away for the potential to counter a Rekka. And so I've just never really experienced that in real gameplay. This just happens to be a funny little nuance that I've noticed as we were creating this. But I don't think either player would actively go for these. I think if I was playing Karin against Sakura, I would just be mindful that when I'm jumping in, that my Rekka might not connect. But otherwise, it's still not going to prevent me from jumping in, because most likely she's going to be standing and she's going to be trying to throw out a reversal. And if I can beat her out of that, then my full combo will land. Yeah. Any additional thoughts to that?
No, I mean, obviously, I'm just sort of basing it on. I was just thinking about a theoretical situation where there might be a bit of a hole in that game plan, because there is a theoretical gap there that Sakura could take advantage of.
Yeah, it is possible. But yeah, I think this is a really nuanced and really nuanced situation, and I can't see either player basing their game plan around this, but it's possible. So this is just the actual bread and butter as it should be landing, and then there's a subsequent follow-up. And now I'm just going to demo how you can do a couple of the bread and butters with a cross-up as well. And a cross-up is definitely one of the better ones in the game as well. Probably not quite as good as Sakura's. And again, Sakura's hitbox makes it difficult to land the cross-up. But once you land a cross-up, as you can see right now, you can follow up by launching them into the air, and then you can land a VC, or you can land a standing hard punch. You can knock them down, and if you knock them down, you can set up another cross-up or another wake-up, sort of a wake-up game where you can, mix things up.
So basically, you're saying essentially that if you manage to score a jump in of any sort, you can then go into the Rekka combo or the Guren Ken, and then from the Guren Ken you can go into that up kick. And if the up kick works, then you've got two other options, which is do a standing heavy punch if they flip, or if you've got the V as a meter to activate your meter and then use an anti-air VC is essentially what you're saying.
Yeah, well summed up.
Yeah, and then,
or also you can sweep as well, do that sweeping ender, and then set up another situation where you can, jump in or do an overhead or something like that. But yeah, as you can see, like her game massively revolves around landing. What is it? The Guren Ken.
Guren Ken. You're learning. That's great.
I'm pretty sure that's not how she says it, or the Japanese. The Guren Ken.
Yeah, I know. I mean, if there are any actual Japanese listeners, I think they're probably thinking, "Oh my god, you've just completely butchered the word." But that's okay. At least I'm giving it a try.
That's what you can say after a match as well. I'm just giving it a try.
Well, someone's getting very overly confident now, eh?
But yeah, her game massively revolves around the Guru Chen, and as you can see, you can land it off a standing medium kick. You can land it off two crouching light kicks. You can walk up to your opponent and try and land that full bread and butter with the jabs. You can jump in. You can cross up. There's so many ways you can land it. And then after landing it, she has so many options as well. And yeah, like what I mean, what's it like for you? Given that she has so many options, is she difficult to play against, or what are your thoughts so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think not only does she have the two enders that you were showing, you know, the up kick and the crouching sweep thing. The thing that I find is particularly tricky is that she's also got the option to do the overhead. So then you've got to really be mindful when she's doing the Guren Ken. Do you need to block high or do you need to block low? I mean, I still feel like, you know, blocking low is often the best thing to do first, because the overhead move comes out later. So there's a bit of a delay before the overhead move comes out. So it's always better to try and block low first and then block high. But because the two of them come out pretty quickly, your reactions still need to be pretty quick as well. Now, one of the good things is if she does do an overhead and you're pretty confident, you see it and you react fast enough, it is theoretically possible then to go and either throw in a VC to pretty much knock her out of it. But you still need to be very alert when you're playing Karin because of the fact that she's got those options there. And I think, you know how you were saying before, when you put the light punches and kicks in there, that adds up to, and if you add the jump in as well, that's like a 7-hit combo.
Yeah.
And those just when you're getting pummeled with, even though they may not be very high damage individual hits, just the fact that you're being pummeled by a series of constant attacks, that kind of really does get the adrenaline pumping, and you start panicking. You can certainly start panicking when you see such a large number of hits, locking you in a block string, and you start getting impatient. You're more likely to get hit out of the block string or accidentally miss block things because the string itself is so long.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of alpha as well. You know, it's that sort of maintaining momentum, that sort of maintaining the sort of attacking initiative, because you're essentially throwing out hits that are pretty much safe, and the opponent can only block, which is advantageous to you, or they can try and break out of it, in which case they're likely to get hit. And so, you know, by throwing out these hits that are very safe and at the same time set up potential combo situations, or at the very least chip damage on your opponent, it's just a very solid way to play Alpha 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's a really good point you make on the overhead as well, because the overhead finisher is something that, you know, you can use quite a lot, but definitely at the higher levels you can't abuse it, as you said, because people start looking out for it. And I noticed that I used to abuse it to success against you quite a lot back then, but as you clued in on it and developed that reaction as well, I'd end up eating a 50% VC, which is just not desirable. And so I start having to be much more sparing with it. So this is one of the exceptions when it comes to counter hits that create this sort of knockdown effect. Most of them tend to be heavy attacks, but in this case, Karin has an overhead forward medium kick, which on counter hit creates this knockdown effect, and then again, like her standing hard punch, creates juggle opportunities. And so that's really good, considering that the overhead is something that you're likely to really throw out on an opponent on wake up to score that hit when they typically crouch and block at the same time. And so sometimes if they try and counter you, you can land a counter hit, and that just adds another world of hurt for them. What are your thoughts on this?
It's quite interesting too to see, you know, a medium attack do that, because most of the times it is a heavy attack that causes the counter hit. It's definitely, you know, quite a interesting exception, and one that is definitely quite powerful. As you were saying too before, you know, most of the times when you are going to connect a counter hit is when someone's waking up. Because as soon as they wake up, they're like, oh, I better do something. And then if you manage to time your attack as they're getting up well, which is like an overhead attack, you're very likely to manage to score a counter hit, which then would allow you to do one of those many flip punish options where they try to flip as well. Actually, I'm just curious, if they don't flip, can you still punish them as well?
Yeah, definitely. Because she recovers so quickly from this one. Like the startup time and the recovery time is really quick for this. It's only the standing hard kick that has a much longer recovery time that prevents her from punishing most of the time. But standing hard punch or this overhead, you can easily punish regardless of whether they flip or not.
And if they do flip, then obviously it's just a bit matter of just delaying the timing so that you'd be able to connect it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where varying your flip timing is so important, and it's something that I'm only starting to incorporate more into my game now, because it can really throw off your opponent when they're expecting a flip at a certain point, or else they may be expecting you to not flip at all. But sometimes just this sort of in between flip at an odd timing is actually a very powerful defensive move, which can then create a situation where they are thrown off and you can then go on the offense. So definitely something to keep in mind as you're starting to play more with these punishing flips or escaping being punished by flips. It's definitely something to become more and more mindful of. And so, like, just from landing an overhead, you can then, again, not land 80%, but still land a very powerful combo just for landing an overhead. Here I'm just now I was just demoing her, probably one of her main air-to-air hits, the jumping hard punch. A very good air-to-air option, has very high priority. And that's probably the main one that I'd use. So this is just showing how she can just walk up and activate VC and grab you, and then from there do various combos. I show a lot of different ways you can do this practically in a game in the variable combo video. I won't demonstrate all of them here. But just being able to activate with those invincibility frames of the VC activation and then grab, creates a lot of really interesting situations where I can take the offensive. Like a lot of other VCs, they kind of rely on punishing the opponent when they've made mistakes. But this is one of the situations where I can be very aggressive with my V's and meter, because I know that I can grab my opponent and then start a combo of it, which isn't something that many characters have. Any thoughts on facing this, or any thoughts on the move in general?
Yeah, so basically the interesting thing is this just not any random grab. The system in Alpha 3 is such that you can only use command grabs to be able to grab through block stun and grab through hit stun, and so in this particular situation, Karin has got this her grab is command grab, meaning you have to put in some degree of motion into it before the move comes out. So it's essentially a special move. So for her, it's a 360-degree motion and then to press the kick button.
Yeah.
Now, the beauty about all this command grabs, as you were saying before, is that it just gives you the ability to land it in so many varying different ways. But it's not only in command grabs, when you're in Vism, when it's active, not only do they grab through block stun, meaning even if they're blocked, if you do a jump in or something like that, or light kick or something like that, that actually creates a situation where the opponent is forced to block, and then you do the command grab, it will grab them even if they're blocking, which doesn't normally occur in most situations. Let's say, for example, if you're playing Zangief or something, you can't do a standing light kick and cancel the light kick into a 360-degree spinning pile driver, because the pile driver will come out too quickly and it will execute while the opponent is still in block stun, and then it will miss. Whereas when you're active in Vism, even if they're still in block stun and you execute the 360, the command grab, it will grab them. And that makes the move so effective.
So basically, not only that, so it's Vism that overrides that property, is it?
Correct.
Yeah.
When you're in the active VSM state.
Yeah.
And not only that, when even if you're getting hit, so if you're in hit stun, normally you're not supposed to be able to be grabbed while you're actually still recoiling from being punched in the face. But with the VSM, even if they're recoiling, you can actually grab them as well. So that makes these command grabs even more effective, you know, in VSM when it's active. And finally, as if that's not enough already, it also can be used if you knock the opponent down. So you can actually grab them with the command grab as they hit the floor. So what I mean is, let's say you can actually sweep the opponent or do like Karin's got a throw, which is forward and 2 punches. So, and that will actually cause her to slam the opponent into the ground. And once the opponent's in the ground, you can activate the variable combo, the VC, and then go straight into the command grab as well. And that will essentially be able to pick the opponent up off the floor as well. So we actually call this an OTG. So basically, you've got essentially 4 different ways to be able to connect a command grab when you're in a VSM state. So either just walk up and just grab them, which you could do even when you're not in a VSM state. You can do it while they're in block stun. You can do it while they're in hit stun, and you can grab them off the floor as an OTG after you've thrown them or sweeped them or something along those lines as well. And so that's why Karin becomes really effective in VSM, because of the fact that she's got the ability to pick them up off to connect that command grab in so many different situations. And the biggest thing is that she then has the ability to connect something else after the grab, because most characters can't do that. Only in specific situations, or the timing is very difficult. Like, for example, like Armika can technically do 4 of her grabs, one after another in the corner, which are, you know, OTG, basically grabbing off the floor. But the timing required for that is so precise, it's extremely difficult to do. Or E Honda has also got the ability to do that, but again, it's very difficult timing. But majority of the cast, when they actually do a 360, a command grab, to try and combo and follow another combo off it, you know, and be able to do it essentially anywhere, because Karin can do it even in the middle of the screen. Most of the other characters can't. They have to be in the corner for it to work.
Yeah.
And so Karin has this ability to be able to connect the rest of her juggle to those command grabs so much more easily and so much more readily. Look, I mean, I'm aware like other characters like Junie can also do that as well, but again, it's very, very situational. So she has to be close to the corner. Well, you know, opponent, she has to have her back in the corner, believe it or not, for her to be able to continue combos off it as well. So you know, Karin definitely has so much more in terms of versatility when it comes to using the 360 command grab into a juggle combo.
Yeah, so much variety in variable combos, so much variety in even her reccas and what follow-ups you can do. So she has a lot of options, and so as you can see, that's why she's one of the higher tier characters in the game. So as you can see right now, Sakura's in block stun after I've landed a jumping heavy kick, and I just immediately activate after, and then I can grab her, and then continue the combo from there. Now, it isn't foolproof though. I will demo one with her jumping medium kick as well, and each time I'll demo one where I've successfully landed it, and I'll also demo one where I don't land it correctly, and that's where I've messed up the timing slightly, and I've allowed myself to get pushed away too far. See, in this case, I got pushed back too far, and I didn't even attempt to grab in this one because I'm just too far away. So over here, again, you can see she's in block stun, and I'll be able to grab her because I'm close enough, and then I can continue the combo, although I didn't do it this time, showing some mercy, as I might have to with Dr. Ella later. But yeah, as you can see, I've missed there, and that's because it's and that's because I was just too far away. I allowed myself to travel too far back or get pushed back from my own kick, and then I've missed it afterwards. So it's not foolproof, but with a bit of practice, you can get it to a situation where almost any time you land a jump in and the opponent hasn't punished your jump in, you've just got a free V combo opportunity.
I don't know whether or not it's, when it happens in a match, it's actually going to be, giving me that sense of security, or you actually just messed it up. So
So that's just about it. Like right now, I'm just going to show her slam throw. I don't actually do the OTG afterwards, but you can refer to the variable combo video after this. I guess here I'm just demonstrating how fast it comes out, and also how fast she walks as well. I'll be demoing her walking speed. And like I said, the walking speed has so many advantages to it. She's one of the fastest in the game, and that allows her to, one thing that I described earlier, if you anticipate your opponent jumping, or maybe they're a very jump happy person and you see it coming, you can just walk underneath them. And then in her case, she has an excellent anti-air that covers the entire area above her head. And so you can just walk underneath and set up juggle opportunities. You can walk under them and activate VC. And also it adds so much to her footsie game. And maybe I might get you to talk a little bit about that, Dr. Ello, just because her walking speed allows her to dance in and out of the opponent's poke range. And that just makes her footsie game so much more powerful. What do you think about it?
Yeah, and I agree, because she's the walking speed definitely, adds so much to a footsie game. So basically what we mean by footsies is basically being able to use your normal attacks to essentially hit your opponent. Or the whole footsie game is essentially being able to create situations where you either goad them into throwing out an attack so that you can you can pretty much punish their extended limbs, or you position yourself well enough to make sure that when you do the attack, you do connect with them. So a lot of the footsie game is being able to maneuver yourself very quickly in and out to goad your opponent to try and throw out an attack. And when they do throw out an attack, use your own attack to hit their extended limbs. And obviously, the faster you can walk, the easier it is to be able to move in and out of that zone. So you've got characters like, for example, Zangief, who are very, very big, very strong characters. They're sure they do a lot of damage when they hit, but they can't move very quickly. So against, for example, like Karin, even though he's got really long, outstretched limbs, Karin could be within his ability to hit her, within the reach of his punch, but she could easily just on the cusp or the edge of that range. She could just quickly then walk straight out of it, and then just as Zangief has got his extended arm out there, she can use another tactic to pretty much hit Zangief's extended arm and score damage from it that way. So yeah, having a quick walking speed, yeah, beautiful, absolutely perfect when it comes to playing these footsie games.
And how do you find, because one thing I found that I use on actually not just yourself, but just on people in general, like just a lot of people I find that they're not expecting me to just walk up, especially as fast as she is, just walk up and then just slam them into the ground with that grab. How do you find that? Is that surprising?
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with that. There's definitely no doubt about the fact, because she can walk so fast, there's a lot of things which you have to be so attentive about. You have to be really on your game and focused all the time to be fighting characters like Karin, who've got such quick movement speed. Because yeah, not only are they good with the footsies, if they want to, they can just come straight up to you, walk up, throw, and then if they throw you, yeah, as we were talking about the whole OTG game before, and she throws you and she's got a meter, yeah, you pretty much lost about 40 to 50% of your life.
And even without meter, as we've stressed, the wake up game is so important. And so, as you can see, Karin's game is massively about just scoring a knockdown, whether it's with a Rekka combo or whether it's a slam grab or an anti-air, or she's looking at launching them into the air. And then she just has so many options after that. And so her whole game just revolves around scoring these various knockdowns. And a lot of them revolve around the Rekka. But anyways, we'll just wrap up the video. This is just going to be demoing her walking speed and a couple of her slam grabs. But it's just like how fast I can juke in and out of Sakura's poke range. And given that Sakura has so many strong pokes, that's very important. This is just demoing if I land the overhead finisher, or it's a standalone move as well. And in this case, if they are crouching and blocking, obviously I hit them, and then I can set up more juggle opportunities. so I can just land that standing heavy punch, which is something that you should be using a lot in games of using Korean.
So if they don't flip after you've managed to connect the overhead attack, are you still able to punish them?
I can do it if I do it on a counter hit.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, but not.
Wow, so that's incredible. So that even the overhead itself can lead to quite a lot of damage too. So it's not just a knockdown move and then allows you to play the wake up game. You can really punish again, even if they try to flip and recover from it, or even if they don't flip and they try to attack you out of the overhead move and they ended up getting hit on a counter hit.
Yeah, and that just speaks to, again, how much variety she has. I mean, even with this more obscure move that you wouldn't be throwing out too much, but given that it is such a obscure move that you shouldn't be throwing out too much, it can also be a very strong surprise attack, which can lead to, massive damage as well. So that's just another option she has up her sleeve. And one more that I don't demo is her counter, which is quarter circle back kick or quarter circle back punch, and she can use that as another variation as part of her wreckers as well. And scoring one of those is a counter hit, knocks them into the air, and creates more juggle opportunities as well. So again, another powerful option to launch them into the air. And that is it. Any final thoughts on Karin as a character in general? How she plays, what her strengths and weaknesses are, how she fares against the rest of the cast?
Yeah, I mean, look, just the way you described her, I think there's no doubt about it. Karin's definitely. Well, I would say she's actually quite a difficult character to play, though. The reason why I would say that is because a lot of her stuff requires quite a lot of execution. So, for example, particularly in Vism, if you want to use her 360 degrees, even that move itself is quite difficult to execute. And then being able to do the juggles before just as she's finishing that requires very, very strict timing as well. And even the movements for her juggles. Juggle VCs are probably not as straightforward as a lot of the other characters that are in the cast. For example, like Sakura, definitely hers is probably one of the most straightforward ones to pull off in the game. Definitely in terms of her effectiveness, I'd say, she would be sitting up there. She's so fast. She's got so many options available to her. Her footsies game is fantastic. She's got a lot of ways to punish flips and rolls and whatnot. So yeah, I think definitely I would consider her to be one of the more effective characters in the whole Street Fighter Alpha 3 cast. In terms of the matchup against Sakura, I would say, I would consider them to be fairly even in their matchup. I mean, what would you think about that? Do you agree with that as well?
Yeah, I agree that. I mean, I think that there's nothing about the matchup that makes. There's nothing specifically scary about Sakura for Karin and vice versa. Their strengths. I mean, they're both just really strong characters, and so you've just got two sort of pretty much top tier characters. I mean, if we discount the S rank or the god tier, Dalsim, Akuma, and Sodom, Sakura and Karin are pretty much among that tier that is the best of the rest, and they're a nightmare for most of the cast to play against. And I think for them against each other, it's just one strong character against another. And so I think in terms of Karin, I think the only obviously bad matchup that she has is Akuma, because that dive kick is just so fast and he can just keep swarming her with pressure. And probably her major weakness is that lack of an instant anti-air that can just come out instantly and with a really high priority, like a Shoryuken. For her, she only has that standing hard punch or a VC activation. And the problem is, even with those, it's very difficult to match up against the dive kick. So Akuma happens to be probably her worst matchup. And then against the rest of the cast, she fares pretty well. And I think against Sakura, it's pretty much about 50-50.
If you're talking about like at the highest levels where everyone's executing things pretty reliably.
Yeah, yeah. And on that note, when you do say she's very execution heavy, I do agree for Visum and at the higher levels, to if you want to have access to all of her options, definitely very execution heavy. And then even in gameplay, it's very confusing to be. You need to have everything very well practiced, so then you can pull out whatever option is relevant for the situation. And at the highest levels, that can be difficult. But she is definitely very playable. I think even at the at the beginner and intermediate level, she can be played very simply and still very powerfully. In ASM, if we, I guess we'll chuck a link to the ASM combos video, but she has a lot of powerful ASM combos, a lot of her, the other combo and combo options, and setting up counter hit situations, punishing roll recoveries with the crouching light kick into Rekka. All of her Rekka combos still stand, and so sure, she loses a lot of versatility with the variable combos, but realistically, a lot of the other stuff is not too execution heavy, and she's still immensely powerful. So she's still definitely very worthwhile picking up if you're, if you find her like a cool character. She's very playable in ASM, and you don't need to be particularly skilled to play her as well.
Fantastic. Sounds great.
Cool. So any final thoughts before we move into part two for Sakura?
No, not really. I think you actually did a pretty good job covering everything. So that's pretty amazing. I think the only thing you probably needed to add in is just, in terms of matchups, when it's me and you, then you'll probably, it's not 50-50 anymore. I think it's probably going to be more like 30-70 in my favor, but that's okay. I mean, look, you can't be too thorough, if you know what I mean. You can't have everything there.
Right.
That's okay.
70 to me and 30 to you, right? You're like that butler at the start of the game, at the start of her startup screen, and she chucks the platter at him.
No, I don't think so. I'm actually Sakura who's beating you on the ground, but that's okay. Yeah, let's not get into semantics here.
All right, let's head over to part two where Dr. Ella will take us through Sakura.